I never planned to keep my success a secret. Standing outside my childhood home on Christmas Eve, watching snowflakes settle on my designer coat, I thought about how different things could have been if my family had believed in me just once. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm the founder and CEO of Artemis Consulting Group, one of the most prestigious management consulting firms in North America. But to my family, I'm still just the disappointment who quit her stable job at Anderson and Brooks 5 years ago to play business owner. The Christmas lights twinkled mockingly as I remembered last year's holiday dinner. "When are you going to get a real job?" my sister Olivia had asked, adjusting her Cartier bracelet. "Dad knows people at Goldman Sachs. They're always looking for back-office support staff." I'd smiled politely and said nothing about the fact that Goldman Sachs had hired my firm last month for a $100 million restructuring project. My father, Richard Mitchell, was a mid-level executive at Mitchell Ward Technologies, a regional tech company started by his father. He'd worked there for 30 years, slowly climbing the corporate ladder while watching his younger brother Thomas become CEO. The bitterness of playing second fiddle to his brother had shaped our entire family dynamic. "Success is about stability," he'd drill into us at dinner. "Following the safe path. Building connections." He'd then gesture to my sister Olivia, who'd followed his blueprint perfectly. Business school, entry-level position at a prestigious firm, carefully orchestrated networking events. I'd chosen a different path. After graduating with a double major in business and computer science, I spent 3 years at Anderson and Brooks, learning everything I could about management consulting. While my colleagues chased promotions and office politics, I was building something bigger. I started small, taking on independent consulting projects on nights and weekends. My first client was a struggling software startup that needed help streamlining their operations. Within 6 months, I'd helped them triple their revenue. Word spread quickly in the tech community. The day I quit Anderson and Brooks, my father exploded. "You're throwing away a perfectly good career for some pipe dream," he'd shouted. "No one will take you seriously as an independent consultant." He was right about one thing: being independent wasn't enough. So I created Artemis Consulting Group, named after the goddess of strategy and the hunt. I kept my name off all public documents, operating through a complex network of holding companies. To the business world, Artemis was a mysterious but highly effective consulting firm. To my family, I was just Sarah, the struggling freelance consultant working out of a small office downtown. That small office was actually a front. My real headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of the city's most prestigious business tower. But my family never visited, so they never knew. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. My mother answered, her face lighting up briefly before settling into its usual worried expression. "Sarah, honey, we were starting to think you wouldn't come." She hugged me quickly, then whispered, "Your Uncle Thomas is here with the board members. Try not to mention your consulting thing." Inside, the house was packed with the usual Christmas crowd: family, business associates, and my uncle's influential friends. Olivia held court near the fireplace, showing off her engagement ring to a group of admirers. Her fiancé Marcus, a junior executive at Mitchell Ward, stood nearby looking important. "Sarah," my father's voice boomed across the room. He'd clearly had a few drinks already. "Come meet Bob Warren from Apex Solutions. They're looking for someone to handle their data entry." I bit back a laugh. Apex Solutions was actually one of my clients. We were in the middle of orchestrating their $200 million expansion into Asian markets. But of course, they were dealing with AP, the mysterious CEO of Artemis. not Sarah Mitchell, the supposed failure. Actually, Dad, I started, but was cut off by Uncle Thomas's arrival. He swept into the room like a king, trailed by several board members. My father's expression tightened, the familiar mix of resentment and forced respect. Richard? Thomas clapped my father on the back too hard. Quite a year we're having at Mitchell Ward. Though this merger situation is giving me gray hairs. He laughed loudly. I perked up at the mention of the merger. Mitchell Ward had been desperately trying to arrange a merger with Global Tech Industries for months. What my uncle didn't know was that Global Tech was one of my shell companies, created specifically for this purpose. You know, Thomas, my father said, shooting me a warning look, Sarah does some consulting work. Maybe she could. Consulting? Thomas snorted. We need serious solutions, Richard. We're working with the best. Artemis Consulting Group. Though their CEO is impossible to meet. Very mysterious. I sipped my wine to hide my smile. I had been deliberately dodging Mitchell Ward's meeting requests for weeks, letting them sweat. Speaking of which, one of the board members chimed in. Has anyone managed to set up that meeting with AP? The Global Tech deadline is coming up. Not yet, Thomas growled, but they'll have to meet with us eventually. We're Mitchell Ward, after all. I couldn't help myself. Maybe they're not impressed by the name. The room went silent. My father's face darkened. Sarah, he warned. But I continued. From what I hear, Mitchell Ward's market position isn't as strong as you think. The Global Tech merger isn't a power play. It's a desperate move to avoid bankruptcy. I knew I'd gone too far, but years of condescension and dismissal had finally boiled over. Uncle Thomas's face turned purple. How dare you? What would you know about our company's position? My father grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the kitchen. I need to speak with you. Now. In the kitchen, he exploded. Have you lost your mind? Embarrassing me in front of Thomas? In front of the board? I was just. You're a disgrace, he shouted. Working your little consulting jobs, pretending you understand business. You know nothing about the real corporate world. The kitchen door opened. Olivia stood there smirking, with Marcus and several others peering in curiously. Maybe she should leave, Dad, Olivia suggested sweetly. We don't want to upset Uncle Thomas further. This merger is too important. My father's face hardened. She's right. Get out. We don't want a lowly consultant here, spreading lies about our company. I looked at their faces, my father's anger, Olivia's satisfaction, my mother's silent compliance. 5 years of hiding my success, of letting them believe I was a failure, all led to this moment. Fine, I said quietly, gathering my coat. But remember this moment. Tomorrow might be interesting. Is that a threat? Marcus sneered. What could you possibly do? I smiled, thinking of the merger documents sitting on my desk, waiting for my signature, not as Sarah Mitchell, but as AP, CEO of Artemis Consulting Group. Merry Christmas, I said, and walked out into the snowy night, leaving them to their celebration. They had no idea that tomorrow their entire world would turn upside down. The next morning, I arrived at Artemis headquarters before dawn. The city was still sleeping, but the top floors of our building hummed with activity. My team knew today was important, though none of them knew about my personal connection to Mitchell Ward. Good morning, Miss Phoenix. My executive assistant, Emma, greeted me, using my business name. She was one of only 3 people who knew both sides of my life. The Mitchell Ward delegation is scheduled for 10 a.m. Your uncle has called 4 times already trying to move it earlier. I smiled, settling into my office. The entire floor was designed to project power. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern art worth millions. And at the center, my desk made from a single piece of rare black walnut. This was where I truly belonged, not in my father's kitchen being told I knew nothing about business. "How many are coming?" I asked, reviewing the merger documents. 8, Emma replied. Thomas Mitchell, 4 board members, their CEO, and she hesitated. "And your father and sister." Mr. Mitchell insisted on bringing his head of strategic planning and her fiancé. Of course he did. Olivia had been promoted to that position last month. Another example of Mitchell Ward's nepotism. I took a deep breath, remembering last night's humiliation. "Emma, call Gregory at Global Tech. Tell him to be ready." She nodded, understanding perfectly. Gregory ran Global Tech, my shell company, and knew exactly what role to play in today's drama. At 9:45, Emma's voice came through the intercom. "They're here. Early, as expected." "Let them wait 15 minutes, I instructed. "Then bring them to the main conference room." I used those 15 minutes to steady myself. The moment I stepped into that conference room, everything would change. No more hiding, no more pretending to be less than I was. At exactly 10 a.m., I heard them being led into the conference room. Through the frosted glass walls, I could see their figures, Uncle Thomas pacing impatiently, my father sitting stiffly, Olivia whispering to Marcus. I straightened my Armani suit, checked my reflection one last time, and opened the door. The silence was immediate and absolute. Uncle Thomas recovered first. "What is this? Where is AP? "We're here to meet with the CEO of Artemis." I walked calmly to the head of the table. "You are. I'm AP, Ann Phoenix, CEO of Artemis Consulting Group." I smiled at their shocked faces. "Though you might know me better as Sarah Mitchell." "This is impossible," my father whispered, his face ashen. Olivia stood up so quickly her chair fell backward. "This is a joke. She's lying. She's just a small-time consultant." "Sit down, Olivia," I said quietly, but with enough authority that she obeyed automatically. "Emma, please distribute the packages." Emma handed each person a thick folder containing detailed analyses of Mitchell Ward's financial position, market vulnerabilities, and my proposed merger terms. "As you can see," I continued, "Mitchell Ward's position is extremely precarious. Your attempt to modernize your technology infrastructure has failed, burning through cash reserves. Your market share has dropped 40% in 3 years. Without this merger, you're 6 months from bankruptcy." Uncle Thomas's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "How dare you? These numbers, these are confidential." "Nothing is confidential from me," I replied. "Artemis has been watching Mitchell Ward for years. We own significant portions of your debt through subsidiary companies. We also own Global Tech Industries." Marcus laughed nervously. "That's ridiculous. Global Tech is a major international corporation." "Global Tech is a shell company I created specifically to force this merger," I revealed, enjoying their growing horror. Every deadline, every pressure point, every negotiation deadline, all orchestrated by me. My father found his voice. "Why? Why would you do this?" I met his eyes across the table. "Because you never believed in me, any of you. Last night you threw me out of Christmas dinner for daring to speak about business. Well, let me speak about business now." I pressed a button, and the room's screens lit up with more financial data. Mitchell Ward needs this merger to survive, but it will happen on my terms. First, the entire current board will resign. This is outrageous. Uncle Thomas slammed his hand on the table. We'll never agree to this. Then Mitchell Ward will collapse, I said simply. Your choice. The next hour was chaos. Uncle Thomas threatened legal action. Olivia burst into tears. The board members huddled together, whispering frantically. My father sat in stunned silence, staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Finally, Uncle Thomas deflated. What are your terms? I laid out my conditions: complete restructuring of the company, new management, and most importantly, an end to the nepotism that had weakened Mitchell Ward for years. Olivia and Marcus will be removed from their positions, I stated firmly. All future appointments will be based on merit, not family connections. You can't do this, Olivia sobbed. Daddy, tell her she can't do this. But our father said nothing. He knew I could, and I would. As they filed out hours later, having signed everything, my father lingered behind. Sarah, he started, but I cut him off. You should go, Dad. Emma will show you out. He aged 10 years in that moment. I was wrong about you. So wrong. Yes, I agreed. You were. Merry Christmas. After they left, I stood at my office window, watching the city lights come on as evening fell. Emma appeared with a glass of champagne. Congratulations, she said softly. Though I suspect this isn't over. She was right. This was just the beginning. My family now knew who I really was, but they had no idea what I was truly capable of. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Restructuring Mitchell Ward, dealing with the press, managing the fallout from my revelation. But for now, I savored this moment of victory. The little consultant they kicked out of Christmas dinner now controlled their destiny. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it just needs to be perfectly, professionally executed. I raised my glass to my reflection in the window. Merry Christmas, indeed. The weeks following the Christmas merger meeting were a hurricane of change. News of my identity spread through the business world like wildfire. Mysterious Artemis CEO revealed. The billion-dollar family secret. The press couldn't get enough of the story. I sat in my office, reviewing yet another headline. Sarah Mitchell, the woman who built an empire while her family thought she was failing. My phone buzzed. Another message from Olivia, the 10th this week. I deleted it without reading. Miss Phoenix, Emma appeared at my door. The transition team is ready for your final approval on the Mitchell Ward restructuring. The last month had been brutal for my family. Uncle Thomas resigned publicly, though not before trying to challenge the merger in court. His attempt failed spectacularly when our legal team revealed the extent of his mismanagement. My father took early retirement, unable to face working under his daughter's authority. Olivia and Marcus had been the most dramatic. After being removed from their positions, they launched a social media campaign painting me as a vengeful sister who destroyed the family business out of spite. It backfired when financial journalists dug deeper, exposing how their incompetence and nepotistic appointments had nearly bankrupted Mitchell Ward. Your mother's here, Emma said quietly, in the lobby. I paused, surprised. My mother hadn't tried to contact me since the merger. Send her up. A few minutes later, she walked into my office, looking small and uncertain in this space that radiated power. Her eyes widened, taking in the view. The expensive art, the clear symbols of success she'd never noticed in her daughter. "Sarah," she began, twisting her hands together. "This is quite an office. What do you want, Mom?" She sat down heavily in one of the visitor chairs. "Your father's not well. The stress of everything. He's not sleeping, barely eating. Olivia's engagement ended. Marcus left her when he lost his position. The family is falling apart." I kept my face neutral. "That's unfortunate. But business decisions can't be based on family sentiment. Mitchell Ward is already showing improvement under new management." "I'm not here about the business," she said softly. "I'm here to understand. All these years, watching you work so hard, thinking you were struggling. Why didn't you tell us?" I laughed without humor. "Tell you? Every time I achieved something, you dismissed it. When I made my first $1 million, you were too busy celebrating Olivia's promotion to notice I'd bought a new car. When I acquired my first major company, you told me to consider applying for an entry-level position at Mitchell Ward. We were trying to help." "No," I cut her off. "You were trying to force me into your narrow definition of success. Did you know that while you were all mocking my little consulting business, I was building one of the largest consulting firms in the country? That the daughter you pitied was worth more than the entire Mitchell family combined?" Tears filled her eyes. "We were wrong. So wrong. But Sarah, we're still family." "Family?" I stood up, walking to the window. "Last Christmas, you watched in silence as they threw me out. You've had years to stand up for me, to see me. You chose not to. Can't we try to fix this?" I turned back to her. "Mitchell Ward will be fixed. The company will thrive under professional management. But the family?" I shook my head. "That's not something I'm interested in fixing right now. Sarah, Emma will show you out," I said firmly. "Goodbye, Mom." After she left, I buried myself in work, but my mother's visit had stirred up emotions I thought I'd buried. Later that evening, as I was preparing to leave, Emma brought in one final document. "The last piece of the Mitchell Ward restructuring," she said. "Once you sign this, the transformation is complete." I looked at the paper. A formal dissolution of all family interests in the company's management. No more Mitchells in positions of power. The end of an era. As I raised my pen to sign, I remembered something my grandmother told me years ago, before she passed away. "Success isn't just about proving others wrong, Sarah. It's about proving yourself right." I'd proven myself right beyond any doubt. I'd built something remarkable while they weren't watching. Their opinion of me no longer mattered. I signed the document. 6 months later, Mitchell Ward's stock had doubled under new management. I'd received dozens of messages from family members, ranging from angry accusations to desperate attempts at reconciliation. I responded to none of them. Then one day, a different kind of message arrived. From my cousin Sophie, Uncle Thomas's youngest daughter. Unlike the rest of the family, Sophie had never participated in the mockery. She'd been quietly working her way up through a tech startup, facing the same kind of dismissal I once had. "I don't want anything," her message read. "I just want you to know that you inspired me. Watching you reveal who you really are, it gave me courage. I'm starting my own company. Not asking for help, just wanted you to know." For the first time since Christmas, I smiled at a family message. "Emma," I called, "set up a lunch meeting and look into a tech startup run by Sophie Mitchell." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said firmly, "but not as family. As an investor interested in supporting genuine talent. Sometimes success isn't about grand revenge or public humiliation. Sometimes it's about finding unexpected allies in the rubble of broken relationships. Sometimes it's about helping others break free from the same chains that once held you back. I built an empire in silence while my family underestimated me. Their shock at discovering my true identity was satisfying, but the real victory wasn't in their downfall. It was in finally, fully becoming who I was always meant to be. Not the daughter they wanted, but the woman I chose to be. The empire I built wasn't just about money or power. It was about proving that success doesn't need anyone's permission or approval. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well, on your own terms. And as I looked out over the city from my office, I knew that this was just the beginning. The little consultant they kicked out of Christmas dinner hadn't just taken over their company. She'd taken control of her own destiny. That's worth more than any merger.